You're going to need to do something with the instructions that you receive. Richard, we are honored that you are with us tonight. We know what you are going to do, and we are just sitting here eagerly and thirsty. So introduce yourself more appropriately. Tell the audience what you want them to know about you, how they can connect with your ministry, and any of the other things that you could bless their life by providing. And when you finish that, go right into your presentation. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the opportunity and thinking of us once again. I don't know how much I can say about me, but I can say that I'm the eldest child of Benjamin Barr and Evelyn Barr. I am the also, because I'm the eldest child, that makes me the eldest sibling of Byron, Joshua, April, and Nita, and I think Rachel's made herself a sibling now. I am married to Chanda Janelle. I have a daughter who just graduated from high school a year early, Haviland, and I am the lead servant at the Bishopville Church, located in Bishopville, South Carolina, with a congregational spread of about 6 counties for those people who call that place home. And I am also the vice president for the South Carolina Center for Fathers and Families, where we focus on developing families by developing men. And I appreciate the opportunity. So, John, I guess I can just flow. I don't know if you want to ask me a question or how we'll set this up, but when you talk about progressive children, I want to start off by saying everything matters. We live in a society where people, they don't think everything matters. Everything matters. When you're talking about rearing children, everything matters. Even more so in the development years. If you have a child that's under 13, you need to pay attention to every little step you take, every little move you make, the things you do as well as the things you don't do. And so there's a term out right now called ACEs. ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. I happen to be certified in ACEs, and it talks about the memory recording bank of everything that happens in your childhood. The unique thing about our minds, the unique thing about our nervous system is that our body is almost, if I could say, like a tape recorder. Even the things you do not remember cognitively, you can remember them emotionally, or you have a flashback at a time of it occurs, because the way we are conditioned through our mind and through our nervous system is that we have what we call total recall to a certain extent, depending on the level of trauma, or if you want to hide it, or if you want to heal it. So having said that, I want to drop this right here as I go forward. There are really only 3 ways to live or to be living. And you, my friend, right now are living in 1, 2, or 3 of those ways. And on some level, you might be doing it here. Another level, you might be doing it here. Another level, you might not be doing it here. So the first level is suicide. Those are people who are giving up. It's so painful, they don't want to deal with it, so they give up. So that's the suicide. I'm not necessarily saying I'm killing myself, but I am cutting that off so I don't have to deal with it, and I hope that it dies in the cutting. That's level 1. Level 2 is coping. They cover it up. They are trying to, the best way I can say this, they are trying to manage it per se. They're covering it up. They're coping. These people often become slow addicts. They are covering it up per se. And then the healthiest way is suicide, coping, and healing. That means this person is growing. We all have ups and downs. We all have pain. We all have trouble. The bottom line is you can grow through what you go through. I'm going to say that again. You can grow through what you go through if you allow that instance, that place, to make you better and not bitter. What's the context of that as it relates to children? Parents really serve as protectors and a consistent presence for the things that they hope their children to be. Now, you have to cultivate those gardens. A child's mind is something like, I'll give you something that my mother made me remember. My mind is a garden, my thoughts are the seeds. The harvest will be either flowers or weeds. So we participate in the thought life of our children. We participate in the activity life of our children. We participate in the physical care and the emotional care of our children. Remember this, maturity is not a place, it's a process. Maturity is a process. So technically, every now and then I run into some people, oh, I'm grown. Well, I am growing. I'm not grown as of yet. The word hormone is a eating word. It's a moaning word. So as I just said earlier, in the developmental years, your hormones are raging because they're trying to get you to a certain point. That's the same thing in your mind, body, and spirit. So I want to say this, and I want you to hear it at a high level. Is that a lot of parents are really what they're in? They're in appetite control. They're in appetite control. All of us have appetites. So I want to say it spiritually. We are in the spiritual mess that we are in, not because of what bit Adam, but because of what Adam bit. He had to partake of it. And once he partook of that thing, it's the first biblical foreclosure. They lose their home. They have to change their wardrobe, and they're ousted because something came in specifically, listen if you're a man online, through the seed line of the father. When Eve bit, nothing didn't happen. But as a husband or as a house band, if you listen to the word protector, house band, the protector of the house, what the seed lets in flows through the system of the family. It's not that our sisters, it's not that our women, it's not that our wives don't have an effect. They certainly do. But there's something about the man as a protector and as a standard barrier. For the man as a standard barrier, he sets the standard, he makes the stand. And if there is no standard barrier, then there's no stand. And then it is easier for the children, for the generations to get kept and to get swept by other things. So I want you to see your life as a parent to create a wonderful, living, growing, healing, healthy child. I want you to see your role as creating and managing appetites, if you will. Creating and managing appetites, if you will. Listen to this right here. A great parent is a Weight Watcher. A great parent is a Weight Watcher. I'm not talking, my sister has a show, she loves to watch 600 Pound Life, but a good parent is a Weight Watcher. And what I mean by that is, Hebrews says, as a matter of fact, I should turn to it, but it says that to lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily besets us. Sometimes in the church in particular, we're so sin focused, we forget about being weight focused. So a weight often turns into a sin. What do you mean? So weights often lead to sin. So I want to give you a couple of things as we go into the process of what I am talking about. So there are two weights that are really, really, really heavy. Pay attention if you're listening. The weight of neglect and the weight of inconsistency. Notice I'm not using the term sin. The weight of neglect and the weight of inconsistency. If you will, I want to do Deuteronomy right here. I'm in Deuteronomy chapter 6. And I want to start in verse 1, and I'm going to verse number 8. And this is called the greatest command, depending on if you have a good Bible or not. This commandment, and these are the statutes and the judgments which the Lord your God has commanded to teach you, that you may observe them in the land which you are crossing over to possess. So this is the children of Israel going into the land of the promise, that you may fear the Lord your God, keep all of his statutes and his commands, which I command you, and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. Verse 3, therefore hear, O Israel, and be careful to observe it, that it may be well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord God of your fathers have promised you, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here, keeps repeating that word, here, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. You shall love the Lord with all thy heart, with all your soul, and with all of your strength. And listen, these are the words which I command you today, which shall be in your heart. You shall teach them to your children. What shall I teach them? Everything you should teach them to your children. But listen to the process of teaching. You should teach them diligently to your children, and you shall talk to them when you sit in your house. You should talk to them by the way. You should talk to them when you lie down and when you rise up. I can hear some of your parents saying right now, "Wish you be quiet." You should bind them as a sign on your hand, and they should be frontlets between your eyes. You should write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Watch it diligently. Talk, walk, sit, lie, rise, and put them all over the house. Remember, I told you that as a weight watcher and as a protector, you have to make sure that you're protecting your family to watch the things that could bind them up as weights that particularly might turn into sin, because everything is competing for the mind of your children. If you are over 40, truth be told, if you're really over 35, I could be even a little greedier and say 30. You did not grow up in the era of social media. I saw my daughter outside the other day, and she was standing on the porch, and she was just kind of going off, and I didn't know what was going on. And I was like, Tick, you all right? She said, yeah, why you say that? I said, like you fighting or fussing yourself. Oh, I'm making a TikTok. And so, you know, whether it was Facebook or whether it was Twitter or whether it was Instagram or whether it was TikTok, we had to work very hard. I'm in my late 40s. We had to work hard or harder to get a vice in. But let me tell you, I gave you a term called ACEs and about the nervous system. I'll be very transparent. I remember the first time pornography was introduced. I remember what street I was on. I remember whose house it was. And it was, I don't know if my mom was on, but here comes true confession. It was on 12 East Charlotte Avenue. I was going to play basketball, and I was going with my friend across the street, and I went to his house, and I just heard these noises. I had the ball, and because noise is connected to your senses, pay attention. My ears perked up, like, what's that? And when I went around in the room, I was traumatized. I think I was in the 8th grade. I can remember that like it was yesterday. Didn't have that experience again until I was a freshman in college. And when I heard it this time, I knew exactly what it was because I had total recall from something one thing before. So there have been parts of my life where I have had to fight to turn down the echoes of those noises, because every now and then, come here, computer people, you'll have a pop-up. And now pop-ups are so spectacular now. They're so common now. They follow you. Come here, ladies. You look at a pair of shoes on Monday, and you're like, I ain't gonna get them. And you turn your computer on Tuesday, and them pop back up, and it just keeps following you all the days of your life. And you have to work harder to really protect yourself, because Watch it. The devices of this world keep coming after you because devices give us vices if we're not paying attention. I got a little niece who loves to break off and go hide, and then she's really not that quiet, but when she's quiet for more than 30 minutes, please don't let it be an hour. She probably has a tablet up under a bed or in a corner looking at something that her parents may not approve of. And so what we've done now is that we've actually allowed some devices to do our parenting. Watch what I said. You have to be a weight watcher. What are the two biggest weights that we have to watch? Neglect and inconsistency. Are you neglecting your child? Are you neglectful in any place? Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically? Are you being neglectful? And some people say, well, I do the best I can. Well, the next thing is, are you being consistent? Because a lot of people parent in peaks and valleys. Parenting has nothing to do with how you feel. It has to do with what you're going to produce. So, and the reason why I know that, because that is actually what the word parent actually means. The word parent actually means to bring forth, to produce, pa, path, rent, to pay due on something that you're trying to bring forth, to cultivate that thing. So the be fruitful and multiply as a parent is not a drop-off stage. It's like, oh, I had a kid, drop you off, good luck. It is intentional so you can keep raising healthy, growing children who don't cover up, who don't kill it, but they know how to clear up. And then they are Christ-like because they have character, they have competencies, they know how to care, and then they know how to develop based upon the family or the village that was surrounding them. So in Psalms 127 is a building text. So often we do the top and not the bottom, but the whole chapter is a building text. So you may know it. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain that build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is in vain that you rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he gives his beloved sheep. Watch it. Builds house, guards city, stay awake. You see those terms? Building, guarding, and awake. Building, guarding, and awake. What does that have to do with children? Keep reading. Verse number 3. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward, like arrows in the hand of a warrior. Truth be told, the world is not going to take care of your children. You have to prepare your children to really be at war with the world. So the fruit of the womb is a reward, like arrows in the hand of a warrior. So are the children of one's youth. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but speak with their enemies at the gate. Now, the whole context of that is that children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb, or like arrows in the hand of a warrior. So they're talking about a warrior. They're not talking about somebody who ain't trained in war, someone who is gifted in actually shooting his craft. So as a parent, we should always be getting better to make sure that we're sharpening the arrows that God has given us and aiming them in the right direction. One of the reasons why I love the Bible so much is because the same verbiage really comes across when it says, and bring them up in Ephesians chapter 6. Fathers, do not provoke, do not exasperate your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and the admonition of the Lord. Proverbs is the same way. We know it. Train up a child. Do you notice that all of the ups, you can't take someone up with down habits. A lot of us have a very high echo of words and we have downward habits. Um, and what I want to do, Brother Marshall, if you don't mind, if we need if there's some questions out there that we like to deal with, but I want to back up just a little bit. Are you watching for a weight that may beset your child? What are some good identifiers? Some of the best identifiers are looking at your own life or the life of your spouse or the environment that your child is in, things that could actually prey on who your child is. In other words, what did you struggle with? That's probably in one of your kids. It is probably eating at them. And then that vice takes them down. We have to get to the point where our vision for our kids is so strong and so anchored that the vices don't eat up the vision. Too many times our vices eat up our vision. And so one of the best ways is to look for vices in your child is to make sure you know your own and the environment of which they are in and who you are connected to mentally, spiritually, and physically. Because if we're going to create healthy appetites, we all have appetites. Appetites are good. Appetites make you eat. Appetites, sexual appetites help procreate. But to have appetites are out of control, people end up heavy. Remember, I told you you're a Weight Watcher. And so heaviness weighs on people. And all of a sudden, they might be 100 pounds, but have a 600-pound weight because of the appetite that is raging. And now this appetite turns into a wildfire and they begin to chase that. It eats up their character. It eats up their competencies. And someone who is blossoming great had one thing get into their garden. This is the beautiful thing about rearing child. You have something get into your garden and you're never the same because of that thing that got into your garden. Now, if it gets in, will you just try to kill it like it don't exist? You go straight to suicide? Do you try to cope with it? Or do you expose, come out from among them? Do you expose and get the help so you can get healthy? Good help makes us healthy. We got way too many people covering up, and then they actually end up sicker because their vices turn into lice and eat them from the inside out. You want a child that says, Mom and Dad, this is what I'm dealing with. You want a child that feels comfortable coming to you. But what's your level of consistency? And are you neglectful? Are you talking to them every day along the way as you go? Our economies, economy has nothing to do with money in its original etymology. Economy has to do with the function of a household. So what does the enemy want to do? Listen carefully. The enemy wants to break up your household. If he can break up your household, he can take everything in the house. I know I'm right about it because that's the whole plan of Satan from the beginning of the time. He has not changed his game plan. He's just changed his game face. So yes, he's after your children. And most of the time, the enemy is after our children through us because we are neglectful in our responsibilities and we don't think everything matters. We allow these little weights to get in, and all of a sudden you will find a child who has an attention deficit disorder because their father didn't pay them any other attention, or you will find a child who feels the need to have a lot of people in their life because their mother maybe couldn't afford certain things, so she became promiscuous per se, so she could keep lights on or doing those type things. And you allow those things to get in because we did not seek the help we need, or most of all, we were neglectful in our own self-care. I mean, if we're neglectful in your self-care, you're neglectful probably in your children. Speaking of Weight Watchers, I want to tell you something that most people don't realize. Most overweight is actually mental before it's physical. If you're overburdened, that means there's something in you that will not allow you to move. Listen carefully. And so even the people that actually study, people that are obese, they start off with the mind because there's something in the mind that's stopping you from moving. And if you can move what's in your mind and pay that attention and be consistent with that, everything else goes away. But too many of us get things in our mind, instead of having a healing concept or having a growing concept, we cope or we play suicide. Then that moves through the generations of our family and it takes us down. And then our hormones just moan in our children. And we turn around and recreate the very thing that we did not want to recreate, because first and foremost, we did not want to deal with ourselves. I can see one person saying right now, hey, I want to hear more about kids. The best mirror for your child is you. It's the very best mirror. So as we transition, everything matters. Maturity is a process and it's not a place. Watch out for the weights. When you see your kid burdened down, the face is a truth teller. That's where most of your senses are. You got 5 of them. If you see their sight off, they don't pay attention anymore. If they always want to listen to stuff on headphones, they're trying to shut you out. Look at their mucous membranes. I can immediately tell when someone that's close to me has started doing something they had not supposed to be doing, by looking at their lips and their noses and their nose and their eyes. Those things start to change. And if you spend, watch this, real time, that Deuteronomy time. You remember the Deuteronomy time? The Deuteronomy time is teach them when you walk, sit at your house, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Back to economy before we shift. I couldn't escape my grandparents. These days, people wake up and leave. Kid may go to school, you may go to work. You might see the kid on the way back. And we have very little contact. When the economies were tighter, I'm talking about when people stayed on the same street. You saw your father in the morning, your mother in the morning. You may have went to work with them because you worked in a field. You had that consistent contact. So while we are chasing something else, we might be losing the main thing we need, and that's the family of each other. And you cannot build culturally competent children who you do not know, and you cannot follow their progression if you are not moving along with them. That's the whole thing about Deuteronomy. It's a moving text, that everything we do, that this family has a rhythm. We are actually doing it together. And if we keep doing life together, then we bloom together. But if I see you at the top of the day or at the bottom of the day, we have no communication within, we might send a text message, are you all right? Yeah. Okay. Emoji, ping. It is very little contact. And when you have very little contact, you lose the thing that is actually the essence of family. And that's togetherness. And then the vices come in because we become neglectful and we become inconsistent. And when we become neglectful and we become inconsistent, then the weights come in. And if we're not careful, those weights turn into sin. And so, Brother Marshall, I want to pause right there if there's any questions or anything at this particular time, and we can go from there.
You're listening tonight to Wisdom and Knowledge. Ricky Barr is talking to us about competing for the mind and morals of our children, raising God-fearing, professional, progressive children. Type your questions in the Q&A section, or you can raise your hand and ask your question directly. Take full advantage of the time. So far, we don't have any questions at the moment, but usually people like to wait till the end of the program and then they want to ask their questions. Don't do that tonight. Get your questions in early. We have a response. A person said, "Good stuff. Glad I turned in." I'm glad you turned in as well. Thanks for that affirmation. If you have a question, go ahead and type your question in, or you can raise your hand and you can ask your question verbally. We will give you anonymity with your question. In the meantime, Ricky, we don't have any questions, so you can share more information if you so choose.
So John used the term progressionally progressive. So what I want to do is I want to use a text that we are very familiar with, Proverbs 22. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when they're older, they should not depart from it. Part of your job as a parent is to cultivate. Um, if you are really a good parent, you are bringing forth, you're producing, you are creating a path, you are cultivating. And so we see signs and symbols early on, often about the gifts of our children. And it's our job to cultivate those things, not let those things fall by the wayside. Um, and I'll use sports as a good example. If you ever get a chance, go back to Johnny Carson show. Some of y'all don't know who Johnny is, but it was Johnny before Jimmy Kimmel and all these guys. And Tiger Woods appeared on that show, I believe, at 4 years old with his father, and he was hitting a golf ball. We know Tiger, the rest is history. There's a movie coming out next month starring Will Smith playing Venus's and Serena's father, talking about them changing the world. Richard Williams, he cultivated what we currently see. Jelly Bean Bryant, Kobe's father, cultivated the things that we actually see. But I thought you said something earlier about being neglectful and being inconsistent. Well, the number one draft, I believe, of the 2018 draft, Markelle Fultz, he was drafted number one. And as soon as he was drafted, he said, "Dad, look, I did it without you." And I said, that's very interesting. They hit a pinnacle of your life, and the first thing you do, instead of talk about joy, you make a reference to your pain. I want you to think about that. You make a reference to your pain. So what I began to do is, I'm a fatherhood practitioner. I began to follow Markelle. Drafted by Philadelphia. He's no longer in Philadelphia. He started getting hurt. Then they said he couldn't shoot. They traded him. He went down in Orlando. And by his third year, he was considered a bust. Now he's trying to make a comeback. He's still in the league, but instead of being the number one pick, the team actually regretted picking him. And I said to myself, there's something about trying to control your pain. And when you hit a pinnacle, instead of rising, you burst, because pent up anger is historical neglect from the inconsistencies that you had. So the worst way to succeed, even if you do succeed, is off of love. It's not off of anger or trying to overprove. We have too many people trying to overcompensate for the things that they did not get. If you are a couple watching this tonight, I don't know who you are, do it together. Do it together. I listened to a young man, I will not say his identity. He's a very young man. He's under 10 years old, explain to someone the other day about why his parents didn't get along. And I'm saying to myself, nobody in elementary school should have to be telling adults that his parents does not get along. That's just not a conversation. That's something that's affecting him. That if someone asks him how he's doing, he says fine. And who your parents are, he'll name his parents. But they don't get along. And I said to myself, that is an opening for advice that will weigh him down, that if his parents don't help him fly together, he may actually end up being affected by the pain that he's seeing, because the people who are, watch this, parenting him, that are supposed to be carrying him through, that are supposed to be bringing him forth, he actually sees more strife, he sees more struggle than he does love and admiration for each other. Listen to this, parents. One of the best ways to raise your child is to love each other. Too many men try to love the fruit without loving the tree. There are a lot of women who don't respect the seed and then try to love the fruit. The tree is designed to actually be together because it produces the healthiest fruit. You don't see a tree where, well, my seed down here down the street, I got the dirt over here in the backyard, I got the trunk over here, the limbs are over here, and I think the fruit's somewhere around here. It's the whole text about abiding. Once we understand this deeply, that the enemy is after the destruction of the family because he hates family, because he has none, because he can't get back to glory. So what does he want to do? He wants to take yours out. If he can get a vice and you become addicted to alcohol or addicted to sex or addicted to TV or addicted to video games, or there are a lot of people that are addicted to video games, but it's actually what that is. That's actually a coping mechanism, so I don't have to deal with something that I need to deal with, so I won't grow up into maturity. There are people that just scroll all day on social media sites so they don't have to deal with certain things. We need to get back into the space where we can really look at each other and have genuine conversation so we can create progressively progressive, not regressive children. A person of regression is constantly going backwards. They may be growing old, but not be growing up. And then they are actually retarding their process because they're supposed to be at one level, but they're so obsessed, or they're so they're so focused on what they didn't get, they're still hurting from that right there. That's why you can have a genius of a mind, pay attention, of someone like Michael Jackson, who will put a park in his backyard because he missed something. And he will get friends that are younger than him because his parents had him so focused on actually becoming something. When he gets older, he pays for everything he didn't get along the way. If we're really going to grow progressive people, we have to make sure they mature at the time of that particular season. To everything, there is a season. And then as we ripen, we become into full bloom, not someone who is stuck at a level of maturity, who knows how to wear a suit, but in their heart of hearts, they have a pacifier in their pocket.
We have a couple of questions. Let's see if we can bring those questions front and center. A person asks, how do you get past your own vices and want to raise great kids? How do you get past your own vices?
Well, first of all, you need to acknowledge what those vices are. Seek the right help, and don't add to your vices. So there's a term called advice, and people are like, oh, I like some advice. Well, if you're not careful, if you get advice from somebody who has vices, they actually are adding their vices into their advice. It's stuff like this. I'll tell you what I mean. You don't need no man. Was that person ever hurt? Was that person ever abused? So level one, get the right advice and don't get it from somebody else who has a vice. Level two, expose your vices. Level three, become consistent at working on them. Level four, work at them when they hurt the most. And level five, make sure that you are surrounding yourself in a garden of cultivation that will help grow you. A lot of us have vices. I remember talking to my father, and he asked me one time, "Hey, how's marriage going?" And I told him, and he was like, he gave me that half smile. And sound pretty. What you doing different? I said, "Daddy, I gotta be honest with you. I started out with my weaknesses. I knew that was critical for me. I'm not necessarily saying this is a prescription for everyone, but I can manage myself when I'm on top of my game. But I had to start off saying, honey, I struggle with this. I struggle with this. I struggle with this. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with this?" Most of us, particularly men, we want to start off like Superman, but we really got more Clark Kent in us. And because we got more Clark Kent in us, we want to just focus on having the Superman on our chest. But here's the issue, that when you have a Clark Kent moment, you've been pretending like you've been Superman so long, then you don't want to really say, hey, this is who I am. So honesty, listen to the word honesty, is the nest for growth and development. If you can be deeply honest, then the nest is the launching place. All birds start off in a nest, and then they are fed to the point of when they can fly. We have a habit of trying to act like we already the eagle, but we have not said this is a nesting place where I hurt, where I need nurturing, where I need help. And so what happens is when we fall and can't fly, people look at us like, oh, we thought we had it together. Pride kicks in. Oh, I do have it together. I'm just sitting down here on the ground. You sure you belong on the ground? You a bird? Yeah, I'm a ground bird. Oh, so you a chicken? No, I ain't no chicken. I'm the eagle. Well, which one is it? So the bottom line is that we were not honest enough with our vices. So we spent our whole life, or at least a lot of it, I'm going right back to it, either suiciding, cutting that off, acting like it does not happen. It's killing me, but I'm acting like it don't happen, which means I'm really about to give up, or we're coping. So we're not healing, we're not growing. So I would admonish whoever this person is to find a person you trust, a person who does not have the same vice as you, or someone who has overcome the vice, and be consistent about growing out of it. Nothing turns off overnight. You have to grow out of stuff. You go to it, and once you go to it, then you go through it. And as you grow through it, then you can glow through it. And now you're in a position to say, that thing that I acknowledge, that thing that I'm growing from, I can now help someone else. And when you become a helper of someone else, then you actually take yourself back through the process of glowing, growing, and going. And then you start to mature. One of the weaknesses I believe that are actually even in the body of Christ, that we got too many people acting like they got it all together. The strongest congregation are the people whose testimonies are on the stage and they say, look what he brought me from. Not the people that are saying, I'm blessed and highly flavored and I got everything. No, baby. You need to talk about how God has grown us. That's what's so good about the story of Peter, that Peter kept growing. And then he ends Peter with, now grow in the grace and the knowledge of Christ Jesus. That's what's so beautiful about the Bible and the body of Christ and Christianity, is that we get to grow in grace. And so find the growing grace place, learn knowledge, and then you can go, you can grow, and then you can glow out of that. Go back and help somebody else, and you'll get stronger. But get it out, expose it, tell the truth. And the reason why you got to get it out, because if you cover it up, mildew will set in. It will spoil you, and you are dying from the inside out. Now your vices have turned into lice, and they're eating you up, and they're termiting your soul, and you will not be healthy. I hope that helps. I'm here for you. If you don't know how to get in touch with me, John does. Richard Barr, Bishopville Church of Christ.
Two other questions. Let me give you one at a time. Thank you for the wonderful sharing of wisdom. What are some ways, manners, activities that increase the environment of togetherness? And we have another question also after you address that one.
The environment of togetherness is just that. So the word is together, to get her, he and her. I love this word, so I want you to listen. So if you want to be together, you need to be walking together in a direction together. The text says, how can two walk together lest they agree? Now, I want to make this really, really simple here. So we are in an entertainment society. When you're trying to grow, don't be in an entertainment mode. Let me tell you exactly what I mean. So let's say you say, hey, honey, hey, baby, we're going to go do something together. What are we going to do? You said, let's go to the movies. Then you go to the movies. Maybe y'all decide, normally somebody succumbs, my wife likes scary movies. I'm more of a comedy, action story type deal. But what happens when you go to the movies? And then you say, I'm going out to eat. What do you do while you're eating after a movie? Are you getting to know each other? Nope. You're actually talking about the movie. So you can actually do things together, listen, and still not be together. You are doing activities, but the activities aren't activating togetherness. How intimate can you actually be? Can you go for a walk and just talk about you and your other person talk about them, and then y'all talk about each other together? Can you share a hot dog? Cut it in half. Yeah, I'm giving you a real economical date. And doing simple things together. I don't know where you are on the age bracket. I'm assuming this is somebody who is with somebody or wants to be with somebody, or maybe you are married. Sometimes you have to simplify your relationship in order to grow it. Go to the park and push each other in a swing. In other words, what I'm trying to do is get you to lessen activities and increase intimacy. So intimacy, into me see, that means you have to expose. Have a letter writing night. I love this right here. I do this in my other life. Have a letter writing night and turn around and write a letter to the other person and say, these are the things that I admire about you. The other person do the same thing. Now, sometimes you get in trouble. I hope your letter don't come back blank. But, and then these are the things that I need from you. That's letter 2. These are the things I wish we could do together. And then you look for the commonalities. See, truth be told, many of us don't like to deal with us. So in this society where the movies are now on your TV, you don't even have to go. We have a term, Netflix and chill. So what happens is that people are just turning on a movie, people chilling, and nobody knows each other. You know more about the latest movies than you know about the person you're watching the movie with. So part of having a growing relationship is having a relationship that's always, listen, relating. When you lose your relating, the ship in the relationship tends to drift. So keep relating so the ship can move in the same direction, and make sure you're after the same thing. You have a good values. You value the same thing. That means you have a combined vision, that you're aiming for the same things, so you can actually keep moving. So keep having a progressive way to find time so you can be involved in things you can do together, not just activities. Grow it, grow it, grow it.
Another question. Our son was introduced to pornography early elementary, middle school. He's now in his 20s and stays up late. We thought speaking with him about this way back then that he would stop. My husband gave him the Proverbs to read, and they discussed it. He wants a loving relationship like his parents and tries to connect with people with different yokes, and has started staying up late again in his 20s. How do we continue to train him without running him into the streets or wrong arms?
Well, so I'm going to take the fact that you said staying up late is the indicator for watching pornography. So the maturing process is very, very delicate. And the things that get into our garden, if we have a bent toward those things or an attraction toward those things sear our minds, they sear our eyes, they sear our nervous system. And so in truth, in all honesty, sex can be an addiction just like cocaine. And one of the things I'll do, and I'm happen to be in my library, so I don't know if this person is on camera, but I have this book because I work with people who are actually stuck in that place. I would highly recommend this. It's called Hooked: The Brain Science on How Casual Sex Affects Human Development. Um, so as a parent, and if you say he's in his 20s, I hope he's in his early 20s. One thing that you would probably need to do is he probably needs to lessen his devices. So I'll tell you what I mean. So I, with my grown self, have a bedtime. I don't have my phone beside the bed. I try to take every device because every now and then I have a tendency to wake up and I'll start scrolling. So what I've done is I've taken devices out of my sleeping quarters. I'm talking about how I've dealt with some things. I did very good for years not having a TV in my bedroom, but I married someone who wanted a TV in the bedroom. And so I would watch devices, I would watch relationships, and I would look for the stimuli. Listen, devices, relationships, and stimuli that causes those things. So if it's pure joy, it's going to be even tougher. But if it comes into pain, regret, or anger, there's something that triggers people to do certain things. So I don't know what his trigger may be. His trigger could be loneliness. His trigger could be anger. His trigger could be pressure. His trigger could be loss. His trigger could be a pocket full of money. So if you really know your child, I would look out for the triggers. Often people have a high level of loneliness or a high level of anger or a high level of shame when it comes to pornography. Loneliness, anger, or shame. And when they feel less than, or they want to feel greater than, they look for a high point. So I want you to think like this. And as I try to land exactly what I want to tell you, most people who have gotten into things that they can't shake, either they were exposed to it at an early age, or it hit them at a high point, or it hit them at a low point. Most drugs are called uppers or downers, or they're called depressants, or they're called stimulants. In other words, the first time you may have gotten high or may have gotten drunk, you got exposed at a party and it was a great time. Woo! And you always remember that. So it is a reminiscent, back to the future type things. Or it could be the other side. You were so low at that point in your life, someone gave it to you, and it's depressed or suppressed what you were going through. Or you were exposed to it so early, it got to you at a level where you should have been protected. And now you have to really work to get that thing out of your garden. I like to use the term garden. So what kind of scarecrow, if you will, do you need to help mobilize that out of the garden? But communicate, 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 and let him communicate without shame. Caring communication and shaming communication is two different things. Keep in mind, I said appetites earlier. We all have appetites. You need the appetite of sex. God gave it to us for procreation, but an appetite out of control will take great men, even like Solomon, all the way down. Somebody who can't stop eating will be on 600-pound life. So the question is, how do you bring that appetite and at least put that appetite in the right context? My major concern would be is that if he actually ends up getting to the point where he wants to be in a relationship, that it may be driven by his lower urges more so than his upper urges. John, this is something I would love to take further offline if this person wants to share and go deeper. I do this with men all across the state of South Carolina. It has layers to it. So I would love to take more of this if this person is willing to do this, and you got all my information so you can share it.
If the questioner will contact me, I'll make sure you get into contact with Ricky. We have more questions than we're going to get to. So I'm going to impose and ask if we could get you to come back on the 17th of October and do a follow-up part 2 on this.
Can I get back to your name? You try to put me live. I think that's harvest time in Beeville,
I should have checked with Chandra first, and then before I I should have known that you were going to be that there was going to be so many questions that we're just not going to get to them. That we're just not going to we get more questions than we're going to get to. Let me just read those questions though. What do you suggest for a family where the kids are over 20 now and have experienced parents that were dysfunctional and eventually divorced when they were younger? Another question that says, do you have therapists or can recommend therapists who can help people get through these things? Another person asks, how do we heal our children from traumatic events? We need to take those ideas and make a whole nother program. So if you got what does we had 5 Sundays in October.
Yeah, I'm looking at the calendar right now.
Which Sunday can you return?
It'll have to either be the 24th or I can do Halloween Sunday, Halloween on the 31st. Everybody not going trick or treating, or should I? We could.
You tell me which one you want.
I prefer the 31st, actually.
31st, okay. So for those who have just asked questions tonight that we didn't get through and all the other questions that I didn't even read, Ricky will be back on the 31st. That is 5 weeks from tonight. And he will do a follow-up. If you have some questions that you would like to get to me, I can get to him also. And the son that was mentioned about a moment ago, if you will contact me, I'll get you into contact with Ricky. He has a wealth of knowledge and experience. He'd be very delightful to share. Ricky, anything you want to share with the audience about how to contact you, some of the ministries that you're involved in? We've got people on from all over the state of South Carolina. You might want to tell them a little something about the Fatherhood Initiative in case they know someone who can benefit, or there may be someone who wants to bring you in to address their organization or their congregation and do seminars and workshops that can be a blessing locally for them.
We're more than willing to do that. First of all, John, I want to say I'm once again grateful for the opportunity. So if you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, anywhere in between, I hope this was beneficial and you saw this as a good fertilizer, a good seed time for your time. We're from a ministry perspective, we are all across the millions of South Carolina, but we worship in Bishopville, and we do these type of things in Bible studies. We have grief share once a month. We have men development classes on Mondays, and we're doing our best to go to another level as a congregation. As John said, the Fatherhood Initiative. I'm the vice president of the South Carolina Center for Fathers and Families. I have 14 offices in the state, from Anderson, South Carolina, all the way to Georgetown and several places in between. And most of what a lot of those fatherhood organizations do, I train almost everyone who are in those places. In most categories, we focus specifically on health, healthy relationships, parenting, economics, and relationships. And how to grow a family out of a healthy man who is focused. So no matter where you are in South Carolina, I promise if you're in South Carolina, you're probably not more than 50 to 70 miles tops. But if you're in a place like Anderson, Greenville, Spartanburg, Lancaster, Rock Hill, Georgetown, Sumter, Columbia, Lexington, Horry, Berkeley, well, I'm in those places, so we can do those. But if not, I would love to come meet you personally, whatever we need to do on a ministry level, on a personal level, but always working because I believe that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And so the more we deal with our challenges and the more we deal with our controversies, we can actually grow from a healthy place. So thanks everybody. John, thank you once again. And just in case my mama on, I want to say, hey mom, hey, how you doing?
Thank you so much. People think I'm smart. I just have smart children. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Ricky, so much for sharing with us. Give him a round of applause. He will not hear it, but he will feel it. He will be back with us again on the 31st of October to share with us. And next week, Michael Dublin will be talking to us about how Christian men can stay spiritually charged while living in a sexually charged society. Be encouraged. We will see you on next.